So it passed the House, but not the Senate.
That's right.
What was the holdup in the Senate?
It just didn't make it last year due to the the banking industry.
Oh, the scheduling.
And
scheduling
yes,
was a problem.
And the scheduling was a problem. So Rosa DeLore sponsored it in the House. Chris Dodd sponsored it in the Senate. So I believe that this Congress will pass it.
So when do you expect it to come onto the Senate floor?
I don't know. I guess it depends on the health bill that they're working on at the time, but I hope it comes on by the spring session anyway. And then what I'd like to ask your viewers to do is to be alert to when that paycheck fairness comes up for a vote in the Senate, and to put pressure and to call their senators to support that bill. And this is not a Democrat or Republican problem. It's a civil rights issue.
Right. So how do you personally feel now that you're a household name in many quarters and famous, and you're going to be in the history books now?
I'm very humbled by it. And I'll tell you, David, I have had so many doors opened and so many recognitions and opportunities that I would never have had without losing in the Supreme Court. I often tell audiences today that I'm one of the biggest winners to be a big loser that I've ever known. But it's really an honor to have my congressman who carried my case to the Supreme Court, to the Congress, excuse me. He said that he thinks I'm the only Alabamian with a bill named for them.
Well, congratulations.
Right. It's quite an honor.
Well, if you're a woman and you feel that you're being discriminated against, or you suspect that you're being discriminated against, what is the first step that you can take to discover whether in fact there is a problem and to move forward? Because legal recourse can be expensive, and you may not even know, you may not have a case. How do you go about doing this?
Right, and I'll tell you one other thing about legal recourse. We women and minorities, we don't want that. That's not what we want, because we get that other title of troublemaker. But really the best way is to maybe talk to your HR manager, or to talk to a mentor that you might have at work, someone who sort of gives you good advice that you know you can trust, and then even go to your immediate superior and ask about it, because you do have that right to know what you're paid, I believe. And then if they do not give you a satisfactory answer, you have the next recourse of going to the Equal Employment Office.
Right. Do you have any idea why Goodyear chose to engage in this losing PR battle rather than do the right thing?
I have no idea. I don't understand it either, because there has been so much negative publicity for them.
Right. And so you haven't seen a cent from Goodyear?
No, I do not.
Is there a book in the works? Is there a movie in the works? Because this is really an amazing story, and it needs to be told. People need to be aware of what's happened here, and unless they pay close attention to politics, they're really not. Do you have a book or a movie deal in the works?
I do, David. We have a book. I have a writer and agent, and hopefully a publisher by now. Since I've been on the road for almost a month, I don't know what's happening back home. But I do have a book, and I'm holding out the movie rights. I have a lot of people bidding on the movie rights at the present time, and I held on to those because I wanted those to sort of go with the book. Because this is a story that needs to be told, because I want to leave that legacy for the young people of today, because it's so important to them and their families.
Now, this isn't just a women's issue. This is this is a universal issue. It's an economic issue, not just for single mothers or for women for independent issues, but married men should also be interested. Can you tell me why that might be the case?
Because it's a family affair, and you know, in our country today, with the economy as it is, it takes most households 2 people earning a good living, a good wage, to hold on to middle America status. And, and you know, the men are getting it. That's why I have been so excited about going across the country. The men get it, and that is so exciting, because young men who aren't even married, they don't even have a family yet, come up and say, you know, my sister is struggling. She's supporting a child, and we as a family have to contribute to help her meet her bills.
Right. As you know, watching politics, one of the things that I see, you had women's equality movement. First of all, there was suffrage, but then in the 60s you had the women's equality movement. And at the same time, wages stopped keeping pace with inflation. So men started feeling like they couldn't support a family. It now takes 2.8 incomes to do what one income, the man taking care of the homemaker, picket fence, house. And they feel like they're losing their grip on that, which makes them even more conservative and makes them feel like women's lib was somehow responsible for their lack of status in society. How do we break through that and convince more conservative men that if women get paid appropriately, that will increase their status as well, that this is an economic problem, not a social problem for them?
That's right. That's one of the things that I have talked about in my travels across the country, is because the men really need to accept it. And we need more women in politics, we need more women on boards, because we need to earn our way, and we just need to be given the right to do that. And along the way, most men are getting it, even some of the people who had disagreed with it in the beginning, some of the old timers, when, I call them back when they were the only one working in a family.
Right.
No wife working, but it's sort of an acceptable position now that both people have to work.
Right.
And a lot of, like you said too, a lot of the families are working, one person's working a job and a half and the other one's working a whole job. So you got, over 2 jobs being worked and still struggling.
Right. So are we even close to equality right now, wage parity?
Not yet. The women now, we're up to 78 cents a dollar. That's
78.
White women, white women. The African Americans is less. And Latinos is even less than that. They're down below 50 cents, I believe. I think it's in the 40.
So just to clarify, a Latino woman for the same job, we're not talking about, because a lot of people think, oh, well, men have higher paying jobs. We're talking about for the same job, a Latina gets paid less than 50 cents what her male counterpart gets paid.
That's true.
And for white women, it's 78 cents to a man's dollar. That's really shocking. Why do we still have that inequality in today's America?
I really don't know. I really can't tell you the answer to that, because this has gone on too long. Because, see, the Title VII and equal pay law went on the books in '63 and '64. And in 2008, I toured the country fighting for equal pay in 2008. But it's gone on, and no one has enforced the laws. And it's going to be required. And what I've learned throughout the different states, they now are having their own laws to require contractors to adhere to federal and state guidelines in order to have a contract to work in their state. And it must be enforced, because it just means too much to this country, the families, the education.
Now, when an employer ever answers about these questions, what they'll often say is that women are at greater risk, for leaving the job, becoming pregnant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that therefore that explains the pay imbalance and it's not really fair. How do you respond to that argument?
I don't believe that's a legitimate argument, because, and we still have employers today who tell the women that they're paying their men employees more simply because the man has a family. Well, she has a family too. She's in the same
Yes.
family with him. So, that's not a legitimate argument. It really isn't. And it's just an excuse to keep it going. Right. And we really need to get that, the public educated, and to get people more accepting of the women and quit giving all these excuses. And I've met women who, for example, and I know one of the things they use is the pregnancy against them. They'll work the day before they have their child. They'll have the child, and 3 or 4 weeks later, depending on the work, they are back.
Right.
So that's not an excuse.
And women tend to live longer than men, so actually need to build up more in retirement, so you fall even farther behind than men do over the course of a lifetime.
That's exactly right, David. See, that's where I'm at today. By losing my husband in December, I became another statistic, and my income dropped 50%, but none of my household expenses, actually they went up instead of dropping. And this is really critical. That's another reason that it's so important. And I've talked to women who today are not only supporting their children, but they may be supporting a parent today.
Now, you're from Alabama, right?
Right.
Now, that's what we traditionally consider part of the Bible Belt. And the Bible tells us to take care of the orphan, the mother, the widow, and yet in these most conservative Bible Belt areas, that seems to be a total blind spot where so many other pieces of Scripture seem to be emphasized. What seems to be the problem there? Why don't these conservative areas and these companies adhere to that part of Scripture as well?